What's going on, everyone? Back for another episode of the MLS Digest weekly preview show. And we're looking ahead to week 8 action. Week 7, just to recap it and go over that. We went 7-7 overall across the board, and then 3-1 on our best bets. So another positive week there for the best bets, which I really want to focus on. And just to go over those, the first one of that was Galaxy team total over 1.5. That was the only one that missed. Just a crazy El Tráfico game. It delivered again in a way, but LAFC got that kind of ghost pen, and that changed the complexion of the game. But Galaxy still had a lot of chances. It's just how it goes sometimes. But the rest of the best bets were pretty sweat free, I would say. Atlanta double chance on the road against NYCFC. We got a little bit of a scare there because Giacomakis got ruled out late, which was kind of a surprise. But his replacement ended up scoring, and Atlanta, both teams had a lot of dangerous chances, but I think it was a fair result in the end, and we walk away with that win. So moving on, we had Whitecaps on the -1, so they had to win by more than one for that to go across, and they just dominated Toronto as we predicted, 4-0. So Whitecaps looking really, really good. They're leading the West right now. And to wrap the best bets up, we had Union draw no bet, who went on the road and stole it late against Nashville. They went down 1-0, end up winning 2-1. And yeah, that resolve's been showing. They're still undefeated. The only last undefeated team left. So just moving on to week 8, where I'm just going to go over my best bets for this week. I'm going to have 4 picks since this episode's coming out a little later than I would have liked. But if you've been following the show, we've had 3 straight winning weeks for the best bets since we started. So trying to keep that up, trying to really focus on those. And yeah, let's just get right into the picks. So the first match I'm going to be going with here is Timbers hosting LAFC. And I'm going to be going with the both to score and over 2.5 in this one for a price that I think is pretty good, honestly. Timbers have been in some really, really, for a neutral, good games recently. They've shown a lot of resolve. I talked earlier in previous episodes how they've kind of struggled to manage games, I guess, in terms of getting the results they need. But they, to their credit, have shown a lot of resolve in coming back from huge deficits. They came back from 2-0 down at Whitecaps. That ended up slipping away late, and they lost. But still, they took that. And then last week, they huge comeback against Sporting KC. Down 3-0 at half, you come back 3-3. They probably should have gotten the winning goal later on in those final minutes. They were the more aggressive team. So yeah, they got a good result in that end. And yeah, their attack is clicking, that's for sure. But their defense is very suspect. They're top 5 worst in expected goals allowed to the other team, to opponents, and that number is just as bad at home. Meanwhile, LAFC coming off a huge El Tráfico win, obviously, but once again, not the same team on the road. They haven't picked up a point in any of their 3 road games. They've given up 2 goals at least in each of those road games. They collapsed against Colorado, of all teams, which I think has a much worse attack than Timbers does, who just signed Rodriguez from Club America. I know he got a goal against Union, but I think he's really going to want to get clicking here and get the win, and start to run up a couple games of scoring and get more comfortable in MLS. And so, yeah, I mean, both these teams have the firepower on offense to score 2 themselves. And so I think there's nothing here. There's no injuries or anything like that holding me back from firing on this. Neither team can be trusted to pull out a result, especially like LAFC on the road. If this was like a neutral ground or at home, LAFC should win here, but they obviously leak more goals on the road. And Timbers, they like to find their footing late in games. Even if they're down, they don't bow out. So this could go either way here in terms of like who wins, but I can see both scoring, and this should get that 3rd goal easily. So for the second best bet here, I'm going to be going with more of the same. Another both to score and over 2.5 between KC and Miami. And this is an interesting game because the games, as you can see from the graphic, it's in Arrowhead Stadium where the Kansas City Chiefs play. So it's going to be an event that doesn't really come along too often, I guess, for a team like KC. I would feel like the crowds I expect to be really, the atmosphere is going to be crazy. Should be pretty packed. Everyone wants to see Messi. People are going to come out. So it's going to be a different, not even probably an even better home environment than they usually have, at Children's Mercy Park. But KC obviously coming off a complete collapse. They've had a couple of those this season, right? 2-0 up on Galaxy. Galaxy obviously the best attacking team in the league for sure, but they lost that. And then, but last week 3-0 up at home to Timbers, like we just discussed, and they collapsed. So clearly the mentality there once they take a lead is questionable. And Miami, on the other hand, just a horrible defense, but they obviously can score. They're just good for overs in general. And in a game like this, I think, especially coming off a bunch of bad results, right? They tie to NYCFC, give up a goal, right? If they're giving up goals to NYCFC, they give up to anyone, especially on the road. They tie to Rapids 2-2 in Messi's return, but Messi was back, right, and he got them back, got them 2 quick goals, and he just completely changes the way they play. But obviously they're coming off a completely embarrassing result against Monterrey midweek. It's kind of a bit of a schedule congestion in that sense, with Messi coming back. He played against Rapids, then he has to travel, plays the full 90 in CCC. But I think he's going to play here still, or feature at least, and it's just something that it's a line that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, KC has pretty decent weapons. Agata's looking really good recently. Pulido just returned from a random injury where he didn't play against Toronto on the road, and he featured in the game against Timbers, so I expect him to probably start as well. So they should be pretty good up front. But for a defense that I was kind of higher on towards the start of the year, clearly, they have an issue with holding leads and all that. So, I think either side can win this game. This is clearly going to be the marquee event of the week. And, Miami literally can give up goals to anyone. So, but they still find ways to score themselves, and especially if Messi features and all these other guys feature like they should, I don't see why they wouldn't. Then this is a pretty obvious play here, and yeah, no reason to trust either of these two defenses to keep the other out. So for the third pick here, I'm going to be targeting the Crew again with another spot to fade them. Actually, 2 weeks in a row, we got the DC United double chance against them last week that hit. That was a 1-1 draw, and yeah, I mean, on paper and all that, it sounds crazy, right? Because the Crew are obviously easily the best MLS team, and they just beat Tigres, like just an insane result for MLS, as a league. They beat them in penalties to advance to the semis of Champions Cup. So but we need to take everything into context, right? Like, they're coming off that. They had 2 of those midweek games in the past week and a half. And that's why we faded them last week as well with DC. Like, they just had to travel midweek to Tigres, and it's not even that they played that, right? It's that they had to go to extra time. So a lot of these guys played extra minutes. Even the bench guys, got a little more, weary in their legs and all that. And that's an emotional high, and it's just a really good spot to fade them. They also have to travel all the way west to RSL, which is just obviously not an easy place at all to play in general. But they're going to be missing Cucho due to a red card that he got against DC. And Ramirez, I don't think should feature. I think he still should be injured. He didn't feature against Tigres. He's been out for a couple games now. So I don't know how serious that really is, but definitely shouldn't be considered to be playing here, or at least start, just after missing so many games. And RSL, to their credit, are looking really, really good. They just drew against Minnesota, 1-1 on the road. They have 2 wins and a loss at home, and Chicho's just really carrying this team so far, man. Like, he's bringing the most out of these young guys in attack, and I believe he's leading the Golden Boot race. He's scored in like 2 or 3 straight. Obviously scored the hat-trick against St. Louis, but yeah, especially at home, this team's really, really clicking. And defensively, even they're in the top third best for expected goals allowed to opponents. So they really clamped things down. And Crew, I think because of this schedule congestion as well, in the numbers you can see that they've kind of fallen off in terms of their production and expected goals. And they're obviously not as good on the road this season in MLS play specifically, right? The loss to Charlotte, 2 draws besides that. And even though this is a system, right, where the Crew are really, really good, obviously the best team in MLS, and they dominate games, and they can just plug in players how they like, and it kind of looks a little similar. Missing Cucho and Ramirez like that, and on this huge short rest, and just taking everything in context, right? Like, this is a spot where our RSL moneyline plus 125, I think that was the same price that the DC double chance was last week. Like, it's just a crazy price to me, and just this is the only kind of situations where we're gonna fade Crew all year, because once they're done with Champions Cup, like, they can focus on MLS and all that. And yeah, I mean, it took an Aiden Moore's like banger basically, right? I know they have players of quality, right, that can do that, but you're not gonna see that too much, and can't really rely on that, to get you results. So taking everything into consideration, right? This is just the spot I really like. And RSL should probably take control of this game early and really take advantage of those tired legs for Crew. So to close out the show, the last best bet here is going to be I'm going to take St. Louis -1. So they have to win by 2 for this to get across, but if they only win by 1, we push once again. So yeah, this is just an interesting line to me. Like, St. Louis has had Austin's number since they came into the league. It really punished them. They won both the matchups last year, and I don't want to just only talk about previous matchups, but just pointing that out, right? This year they already played each other. It was 2-2 at Austin. Austin's gotten a huge home bump. Driussi's come back and really sparked this attack a little bit more. But the results to me for both of these teams are not the whole story here. Austin coming off 2 wins at home back to back, but they've played 2 also bottom of the barrel West teams, San Jose and Dallas. So they're beating the teams who they should be beating, right, quote unquote. But yeah, it's not that impressive. Like, they were down 2-0 to Earthquakes, they came back, which is, I mean, that is impressive. But the teams they're beating, that's not just going to convince me that this is a good team. This is still one of the worst teams in the West. They're still second worst in chance creation and expected goals. And on the other end, they're second worst they're giving up the most chances to other teams in expected goals allowed. So, yeah, St. Louis, on the other hand, they're coming off a bit of a poor result at home, 0-0 to Dallas, which was another kind of, obviously, a really bad West team right now, similar to Austin. But I think this attack has a lot more to offer. Lowen's still out, I believe, but I think their pieces are fit to break down this Austin low block, which I'm expecting Austin to come out and just kind of sit back, pray for a result. But if they can get one early, like we saw with Vancouver against Toronto, it should just be a complete mismatch. I think this is a win here at the least, a push. But this could get really out of hand quickly, if St. Louis is capable of running it up, and they like to, instead of just letting teams hang on, especially a really poor team like this. So Austin's gonna have to show it to me on the road here, for me to consider anything else. Their first 2 road games of the season, scoreless in both against Sounders and Orlando. So they're really just praying for these results, sitting back on the road especially. And for an offense that's already bad, they're really not even going for it on the road. So St. Louis should comfortably win here. And at the worst, we push. So yeah, that'll be the last best bet for this show. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this type of content, please make sure to like and subscribe, and leave some comments down below what you think is going to happen this week, what matchups you're looking most forward to, and yeah, just if you're going to tally or not. And I wish you the best of luck with whatever you decide to do. And yeah, it's another interesting slate. I think, again, a lot of teams on short rest for CCC, but just in general, we're really getting into this kind of middle of the season. Everyone's kind of growing into their own and really seeing a lot more from the data, what these teams really are and where they can improve. So Really interested to watch all these games once again, and looking forward to another episode next week for week 9. So I'll see you guys then.